Polish sociologists at the time talked about something called dirty togetherness. Mm-hmm. And that was really all about the networks, the family and close friends, the trust relationships that people needed in order, very often in order to have just a slightly better life. We're not talking about any luxuries here. I mean, you had people who were married, who had families, who were living in one room of their parents' apartments for years on end. So this is what analysts have called need corruption. Mm-hmm. This was not big-time corruption, what has been called greed corruption. And I didn't call it corruption at the time, and I think that's quite an ambiguous label when applied to those sorts of activities. It wasn't usually a simple quid pro quo. It was usually about networks and family and friends helping each other. But what I then, after the wall fell and after the market economy came into play and the task was to develop free market democracies, what I learned about institutions is that we need institutions, we need legal systems, and we need enforcement, because what one saw after the fall of communism, especially when the schemes of privatization and the programs of privatization came into play, was the people who were best positioned to take advantage of their of the huge resources of these newly post-communist states, were those who often took advantage of the situation.
And who were good at greed corruption in the old days, right? I mean,
absolutely.
That also existed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so that's where we really saw, in the post-communist period, that's where we really saw this greed corruption en masse. The Russians called it grabitization, for the quick privatizers who basically acquired, many resources of the state virtually overnight. That's how we got the oligarchs, right? So that's when one saw greed corruption in that part of the world in a very, very big way. And what does one learn from that? Well, we certainly need viable institutions. Solving problems through private solutions is wonderful, and we should do that as much as possible, but we also need state institutions. No modern society can thrive without them.
Right, and arguably the combination of greed and need corruption in the communist system created a system of ethics which was, at the very least, let's say, highly personalized, to put it charitably. In many cases, simply would not apply ethical standards that most of us would see as ethical standards, so it made it very easy to transition into the new kind of corruption, right?
Right, and so, I mean, what you saw in the communist era was a different ethical standard in people that you knew, and for the state. So, for example, if we worked in a factory together, and I had and of course this would be a state-owned factory, and I had set aside materials for me to take home and use in my private business to earn some extra money on the side, some materials that I could make, say, cement out of, some lumber, and I had set them aside. And if you would come by and take those, knowing that I had set them aside, that would be seen as stealing.
Right.
However, what I did was merely lifting.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So it was a different standard that developed for family as opposed to the state. So this becomes a real challenge when you transition to another system.